Hey guys, my name is Sabrina Zohar. I'm a dating coach and host of Do the Work podcast. And today we are going to talk about what is anxious attachment style and what does it actually look like in dating. So guys, as always, please don't forget, listen to Do the Work podcast. You can watch it on YouTube. You can also listen on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, wherever the fuck you get your podcasts from. And please follow along on all the socials, Do the Work podcast and Sabrina.Zohar if y'all need anything and you enjoy the content. Appreciate it. Thank you guys. Subscribe and follow. So, when we look at even attachment styles, now it's a theory, right? But so is gravity. So I know a lot of people might say, is everything about our childhood? And it's like, yeah. Attachment styles are essentially how you learn to attune to your caregivers, your needs being met in childhood. So it then teaches us, there's four main ones. Of course, there's all these little amalgamations, but I'm not fucking talking about that. And so there's secure attachment style, which we're all praying to try to get to, but realistically, every person on the planet has anxiety. Like that's just part of being a human. But a secure attachment, or somebody who is in a secure relationship or a securely attached relationship, understands the independence and interdependence. So this person has a high self-worth or a higher self-worth, has confidence to know that just because they're not with their partner, they don't deem that there's anything wrong. They don't feel any kind of suffocation. They understand that you can show up for your partner and then you can also have that alone time. So they are secure within themselves, high sense of self and a high sense of others. Then we go into the insecure attachments. So we have the avoidant, which has been dubbed a terrible fucking reputation. And frankly, I understand why, but it's just wildly inaccurate. And yeah, I'm not saying that it's appropriate, but the anxious folk have gotten off the hook with a lot more than they probably should. And so there's avoidant, which is a low sense of others and a high sense of self. So these are people that say, you know what, fuck it, it's not worth it. I can't communicate. I don't feel comfortable. They shut down. Now, all of these attachment styles have a spectrum. So just because somebody might be avoidant, like my partner is avoidant, that doesn't mean he won't communicate with me. That just means he's not going to just say it out of nowhere. You have to ask him a question for him to then be more responsive. But he's not just going to come to you and say, here's how I'm feeling, or here's what I'm going through. Like he'll internalize it. He'll say in his mind, I really don't want to bother anybody. And their biggest fear for the avoidant is fear of rejection, fear of being ridiculed for who they are. That's why they say, I can only trust myself, and they remove themselves. They get overwhelmed. So when they get triggered, they see it as a loss of independence. So the avoidant person's job really is to work on being interdependent with somebody and allowing somebody into their life more and learning how to communicate effectively and understand their triggers. Then we have the disorganized, which could also be like fearful, avoidant, but like whatever, for argument's sake, it's the disorganized. That is a low sense of self and a low sense of others. So that person might have grown up in a household with a lot of abuse. So they want the love, they really want it, but then they get punished or in trouble or something there's a negative connotation to going for the love. So then they remove themselves. These are the people that have a low sense of self and a low sense of others. So there's that hot and cold. They want love, but they're so scared of rejection. So they remove themselves. And so you'll get that I'm in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out. And it's exhausting. And then we get to the anxious attachers, which was I was the poster child for it. Don't come at me with any of your bullshit. I've dated the avoidance. I know. And the anxious attacher is a low sense of low sense of self and a high sense of others. So that's why anxious attachers are always looking for other people to validate them, because they have a low sense of their own self and they see everybody, better than I do. And a lot of that stems from inconsistency in childhood. And that doesn't mean that your parents had to have been bad people. What that meant was your needs weren't met consistently. That's it. Lowbrow. And then, of course, we start to add the traumas and shit like that into it. Like my household, very clear where my anxiety comes from, because I never knew who was going to be there. I never knew if we had enough money. I never felt safe. I never felt confident because my dad was in and out all the time. My brother was taken when I was young and I hadn't talked to him for 2 years. Like, there's a lot of trauma and shit to unpack. So it wouldn't be shocking that I would come with a highly anxious attachment, really low sense of self, really low self-worth. And I always just saw, but if you like me, then I'm valid, right? Then I'm good enough, right? And so it's like the first aspect, like what does an anxious attacher really look like? They obsess over every fucking move because of that hyper vigilance. Growing up, if you felt unsafe, then you were super hyper vigilant. Realistically. If you are super hyper vigilant, then there's going to be no surprise that you're going to be like noticing every little fucking thing. But anyways, I digress. I always go on digressions, and here we are. So The other aspect here of anxious attachment style is over-analyzing behavior. So again, we go back to the hypervigilance. You're constantly looking for a fucking problem, because by over-analyzing the behavior, what happens is, it's the same with what if questions and all of those things. What happens is your brain is scanning for safety. So when you're over-analyzing their behavior, you're looking for the threat. Okay, where is it? Where is it? Because you're always so used to something happening, somebody leaving you. So you're on the highest of alert. Because when you don't trust yourself, that no matter what, you'll be okay. And when you don't do the work to cultivate that trust within yourself, then it's going to be really difficult to trust other people and to show up for other people in that way. So it's another aspect of anxious attachment, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. There's always an issue. It's going to come. It's going to come. It's going to come. It all stems back to that fear. You notice how everything is so deeply rooted in fear. So the anxious attacher is so deeply rooted in fear of abandonment. The avoidant, fear of rejection. The dismissive or disorganized, fear of intimacy. That real closeness. And here's the reality too. Anxious people are also avoidant. Anxious folks are avoiding understanding what's coming up in their body. That's why when it's always about them, so the constant reassurance, the needing the reassurance every few minutes just to even fucking feel okay, that's because you're so disconnected from your own wants, needs, and desires. You're waiting for somebody else to reassure you, somebody else to tell you it's going to be okay, because you were never taught how to soothe your own nervous system, how to be there for yourself, and how to support yourself. And again, that's okay. If you were never taught this, I don't expect you to just know it. But the ruminating thoughts and all of the overwhelming negative self-talk, it's like all that's doing is trying to reaffirm your core beliefs. So think about it. The anxious avoidant trap. Why do you think it's such a beautiful dance? The avoidant person sees within the anxious person, oh my God, look how expressive they are. They can let love in. Like they see parts of them that they've really made, like they admire. So they feel very comfortable with the love and admiration that the anxious person has. The anxious person sees when the avoidant, ooh, they're mysterious. Ooh, I don't really know a bunch. Oh, wow, look how controlled they are. They're so independent. It's really sexy. And then what happens is then the anxious person, when the avoidant starts to feel overwhelmed, okay, wait, I'm starting to lose my independence. This is feeling really overwhelming. I don't know how to talk about this. Their fear of rejection. I'm going to hurt this person. I don't want to be less than. Then the anxious person starts to pick up that hypervigilance of like, what's going on? Why are they acting different? What's happening? I knew something was up. My gut. And it's like, well, no. And then the anxious person goes more towards the avoidant. Then the avoidant pulls away. And then it's this dance. Both people are being avoidant of their feelings. Neither person, the avoidant is feeling anxiety and the anxious person is being avoidant. This dance doesn't happen by fucking accident. They're codependent on each other. And I know it because I used to date it. I was always dating emotionally unavailable guys and avoidant men because what did that do? Showed me, look, see, you have to work harder. You have to be chosen. And when they're not, reaffirmed, see, I knew I wasn't good enough. It always revolved around me and my worth and my value, as opposed to maybe that person's just not for me. Maybe that person doesn't want a relationship. Maybe that person's just whatever. We don't need to attach a narrative. And with an anxious attacher, they feel like everything is hyper-focused. Everything is about them, only them. It's always about like, see, I knew it was about me. The reality is then when the anxious person wants the avoidant, it's not really because of who that person is. It's because they want to seek safety. I know it. Again, I used to do it. And for somebody who's more anxious, boundaries feel like they're being rejected. You don't like me. And it's like, no, that person just said that they don't want to text you every fucking day because they don't know you. That's not necessarily you being rejected. That's just them saying, I care about you. I want you in my life, but this is the way I can have you in my life. So if you have anxious attachment style, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. There's nothing to fix. What we need to start to understand is like, what are you feeling in your body? First of all, what does even dysregulation look like? What are you feeling in your body? When you start to hyper-focus on the other person, what are you avoiding looking at within yourself? What are your needs in that moment that you can satisfy? How can you start to challenge your thoughts? Where did you learn this behavior from? How old do you feel when this happens? You were to tell me you feel like the fucking adult sitting in front of me? Or do you feel like a child? Feel immature? Feels kid-like? It's really important to be honest with yourself. Again, and if you're avoidant, same questions apply. Where do you think you're going to lose your independence? What do you think is going to happen if you let somebody in? Okay, so what if you let somebody down? What's so scary about that? What do you think the repercussions are? And if you're finding people that are avoidant, it doesn't mean that like end all be all. It's the same with somebody anxious. It is a spectrum. And if both parties are in therapy, both parties are working with somebody, both parties are doing the work to fucking heal. My partner, I'm more anxious, he's more avoidant. We have a beautifully healthy and secure relationship because we're both working on our shit outside of the relationship and we're both really committed to working on our shit in the relationship. I call him out on his bullshit and he calls me out on mine. So it's not an excuse just because an anxious person says, well, at least I communicate. No, you're a protest behavior or you're seeking safety just because you're constantly texting. But I don't understand. But what did I do wrong? But why won't you talk to me? I don't get it. It's like, that's not communicating. That's not being an adult and communicating your needs. That's just manic trying to get somebody back because you're fearing that you lost the connection. Because if you're really secure and you're saying, oh, no, it's because I care about this person. Again, what do you care about? What do you know about this person? If they're not opening up to you, then it's just about the idea of them that you've created, not actually who this person is. So take it for what you want. But when it comes to anxious attachment style, if all the stuff I described to you, if you can't even get through a fucking day without getting a text message from somebody, you're hyper vigilant on them. You're always looking and emotionally monitoring and regulating what's going on. You're always scared that something bad's going to happen. You never feel like it. Then you're attaching, you're not connecting. Connecting to somebody is, well, we have a really strong connection. So even if I don't talk to them for a day, I'm not scared I'm going to lose this person. I'm not scared they're going to leave me. Versus if you're attached to them, it's like everything is a threat to your safety. But the reality is you're safe now because you have you, not because you have any of these people in your life. So if you guys want to learn more, check out Do the Work podcast. We go into this with experts and guests, specialists, therapists, doctors, you name it, we've gone over it. So guys, thank you again. Don't forget to follow along. Please share this stuff with anybody that you think it could help. And I hope that the information is useful and helpful for you guys on your journey.